Have you ever been pulled over by a cop who's just hell-bent on giving you a ticket? Someone on a power trip? Believe it or not, even if you've done absolutely nothing wrong, you can still find yourself on the side of the road with lights flashing behind you to let you know you're about to pay a fine for minding your own business. Hey all, I'm Tom, the Racing Joker, and welcome to another discussion episode of Car Topics Explained.
Suspect vehicle is a black BMW.
Today, I'm going to tell you every pullover experience I've ever had from the day I started driving up until now. And the whole reason why is because I want to ask the public a question. Are automotive enthusiasts just troublemakers with a victim complex? Or are some cops really on a power trip out to ruin someone's day? Or possibly even their career? Let me start by saying I didn't start driving until I was 19. I got my license at the age of 18, not long after me and my family had returned to the United States after being overseas for about 9 years. A year later, my parents very generously got me my first car in 2017. It was a silver 6-speed manual 2015 Subaru WRX, which I loved to death, at least until third gear got Thanos snapped. It breaks my heart. Well, even though my car had under 300 horsepower, which was the maximum horsepower limit set by my father for my first car, I still managed to get myself in trouble. Still 19, I've only been driving for a few months. I found myself going out for a drive after a date one night on a dark 2-lane country road in Iowa. It was a 55-mile-per-hour road, and I will just say this is probably the only time where I've been pulled over and I actually deserved the consequence that followed, because let's be real, I kind of let my lead foot get the best of me here. So, like I said, it was super dark, country road, 55 miles an hour. The lights of my car were the only sources of light anywhere near me that I could even see. But then, out of nowhere, Batman himself turns on his headlights and his red and blues. Whoever this cop was, he decided to pull a a Batman Begins and catch up to me in incognito mode and keep all of his cruiser's lights off up until he was maybe a car length behind me. And so from my perspective, there was absolute darkness. I was vibing, I was chilling, and then there was suddenly a squad car behind me and I thought my life was over. I can't remember much else except for a couple of key details. I was nervous, panicking, obviously. I knew I had screwed up big time. And so when he asked me, "Do you know how fast you were going?" I looked at him and said, "Well, it depends on how long you were following me for." That was not the right thing to say. Apparently, it sounded like I was trying to have an attitude problem with him, which was not my intent. Heck, I can't even remember if I was even trying to be funny. I think I was just being an idiot. Then I made my next mistake, because he of course asked me, "Do you know how fast you were going?" And then I gave him an answer of about 80 miles per hour. To which of course he agreed. He never had to produce a radar gun because, well, I already gave him an answer. Who knows if he had a radar gun on me or not? Yeah. But then he said he'd reduce it to 69 miles an hour, so he didn't have to take my license or anything like that. Whatever. It is what it is. I did everything wrong that night. I later paid my ticket, and I didn't tell my parents for a while, but holy crap, I was embarrassed. That was the only time I've actually ever been given a speeding ticket, though. And I'm 25 now, so heck, I must have matured a fair bit. Fast forward to, I think, 2018. It's the weekend of July, or the week of July, however you want to put it. It was July weekend. I'm driving my girlfriend and I home from vacation in Branson, Missouri. We're heading back towards the St. Louis area. You know, the place where I recently filmed those screen-used Fast and the Furious cars at the Celebrity Car Museum. Anyways, we're driving along with my brother-in-law and his car and his family. And we eventually reach Franklin County. And at one point, my brother-in-law gets pulled over, and as we pass them while they're on the side of the road with 2 squad cars behind them, one of the police officers who's still in their car quickly floors it, leaves the side of the road to catch up with us. Now, I should probably preface this story with a couple of key details. Even though a lot of people might not see a stock-based WRX as much of a sports car, to a lot of people it still is. And at the time it had out-of-state plates, Texas plates. It wasn't Illinois, Missouri, or anything like that. So very out of state. Couple that with the fact that I was young and that it was July weekend, there wouldn't have been a state trooper on the face of the earth that wouldn't have immediately pounced on me when they realized all of those things were the case. So me getting pulled over was almost guaranteed. I mean, I know that now. I didn't know that then. Now picture this. You're on the interstate and there are no cars ahead of you or behind you. Absolutely nothing in your field of vision or line of sight. No matter how far you look, there was absolutely nothing, just the curvature of the earth, basically. The road was barren, except for a black Dodge Charger that's following you about 4 or 5 car lengths behind you. After a few minutes of this, the officer turns on his lights and pulls us over. And I was honestly not sure why. I wasn't speeding. My cruise control had been on for a few hours by that point. The car was still stock, so it wasn't loud or anything. So I was a little perplexed. Well, it turns out I was ignorant of the fact that if I stay in the left lane for too long, then I can get a ticket for it, even if I'm not obstructing traffic. There were no cars anywhere near us, and despite me explaining to the officer that I'd only been driving for maybe a year at that point, he gave me a very complex ticket for a few things. He gave me violations for hogging the left lane, an improper lane change, and then also apparently I got in trouble for pulling over onto the left side of the road. Apparently that's just, that's a horrible thing to do. It was like a $500 ticket minimum. And instead of him just writing on the ticket what the total fine was, it was one of those weird tickets where you had to look up each violation and what the fines were attached to them, and then figure out the total yourself, and then pay it yourself, like over the phone. And now, this next part's good. Remember, I was 19, maybe 20 by then, so me being ignorant, I was very confused when the officer said, "I'm only going to give you a citation," in the sort of tone you use when, you're basically letting someone off with a warning, or when you use a lighter punishment than what the offense typically called for. When I later realized, because I didn't know right away, when I later realized citation is just another word for ticket, I thought to myself, what was the alternative to getting a ticket for being in the left lane for too long? Like, what else did I deserve to have happen to me? My car get impounded? Me get thrown in jail? My license taken? Hell, get shot on the side of the road? What would have the alternative been?
James May, ladies and gentlemen, is about to be shot.
Man, if he had shot me, that would have been pretty bad, because my girlfriend, now my wife, didn't know how to drive stick. So she would have been stuck. Oh well, anyways, fast forward again a year or two later, my Subaru WRX is now modified. It's got a big carbon fiber wing, a really expensive one, a Greddy Type S blow-off valve that makes awesome whistling noises, and a Tomei catback exhaust, and some high-flow catalytic converters. Oh, and a Cobb SF intake. Man, the car sounded cool. And so, yeah, the car sounded awesome, which meant I typically would also be a gear or two lower than I probably should have been in most driving conditions, so that I could rev out the engine as much as possible without having to go that fast, but I could still hear it. Also while trying to not disturb too many people, be considerate and all that while still having fun. Well, one day I was heading to the gym at SIUE, one of the colleges I went to. The road was like a 25-30 mile per hour road. I wasn't exceeding it. Obviously, I was not going to risk speeding on a college campus. That's just, that would be a suicide mission. But I think I was in like first or second gear, so you could really hear the car. Well, a campus cop goes past me and pulls the most violent U-turn I think I've ever seen. I honestly thought he was going to go into the ditch, fly off the road. I already knew he was doing that because of me. I already knew he was coming after me. But I didn't pull over until the officer actually turned on his lights, because he didn't turn them on right away. By the time he had turned them on, I was already halfway into my parking spot in front of the gym. And this police encounter was weird. He never asked me for my registration, my ID, or my insurance. He at one point ran my plate and then called my car a Scion over his radio, which is just abhorrently incorrect. I was actually a little offended. And then he also said at one point that the registration number came back for a truck, not a car. And I just told him, well, obviously that's not correct. But then a second police car showed up, because apparently he needed backup. And so The second officer, while the first officer was talking to me, started shining a flashlight into my car. And as, you know, he did this, the officer was talking to me and asks me, "Do you have any guns in the car?" And I was a little shocked by this question. You know, I looked at him like he was crazy, and I said, "Why would I have guns? This is a school campus and I'm going to the gym." Well, his answer was, "Well, the car is registered in Texas. Everyone in Texas has guns." And I was so taken aback by his answer that I didn't really process my response properly. You know, I didn't filter it very well, because my response was, you know, looking him dead in the eye and saying, "Well, we're not in Texas." And I probably gave him a look that told him I thought he was an idiot. Because man, oh man, probable cause, right? This car's from Texas. He must be a freaking lunatic. I wasn't trying to get smart with him. I didn't think before speaking. It was just a dumb reason. So ultimately, no ticket or anything like that. But he did warn me that if I turn on my wipers for when it's raining, because it was raining, that my headlights need to be on as well. And he said it in the sort of way a person would when they're trying to get in the last word. To kind of, you know, like, whatever, man. I didn't know that was a rule. I appreciate the warning, but I've lived in 5 countries. Don't expect me to know something like that. Just go about your day, go bother someone else, and enjoy that authority you definitely shouldn't have. But honestly, I expected him to try and give me a noise ticket or something. That would have made the most sense. You know, something about my car's window tint or something, even though my car was actually legal equipment-wise in Texas where it was registered. You know, my cars had, compared to most cars in Illinois, you know, if you're talking about legal stuff and equipment, my car's tint made most Illinois cars, you know, look like they had fish bowls, or like that my car was like a limousine or something. You know, it had real dark tint except for like on the windshield, relatively speaking. But even with the noise, you know, if you had checked with a decibel meter, it still would have been fine. It wasn't that loud. It was noisy, but it wasn't that loud. But hilariously, that was the last time I ever got pulled over in a personal vehicle. The M3, which is a much more extreme vehicle, has never been pulled over, ever, which I think is hilarious because it's a much more ridiculous car. You know, it sounds crazier and it's more powerful and it's faster. Same thing, spoon feeding spoons, but you get the point. But that's not the last story. In case some of you don't know this about me, I am a fully licensed truck driver, commercial truck driver. I've got a Class A with a certification for air brakes. I don't have any hazmat endorsements, to heck with that. I started driving trucks in 2021, and in, I think, 2022, I had 2 encounters with the authorities within a few months of each other, both of them being in Iowa. So, the first and only time I ever get pulled into the inspection lane at a DOT weigh station. All of my equipment was perfect. The DOT officer even said as much. However, I was not perfect, because when it came time to open the side compartment door on my new truck, I realized I didn't know how to open it, because I had just gotten into that truck that day. And for those of you that don't know, the reason why I needed to open the compartment door was to verify the location and condition of my reflective triangles, the things you use whenever you're pulled over on the side of the road. I knew they were there and I knew they were fine because I saw them when I lifted my bed in the bunk area in the back of the truck to store a couple things. So I said to him, "Hold on, let me see if I can figure this out. I don't know how to open the side door." So he showed me how to open it and verified that the triangles were there. So, you know, no big deal, right? When the inspection is over, he hands me the paperwork and says, "Everything looks good. Good job." So I proudly tell my boss, I got a clean inspection. And I give them the paperwork, and boy was I feeling proud. I was so happy with myself. Until she told me that the guy had failed me for saying I didn't know how to open the side door, even though the triangles were there, and the door was fine. Which just seems petty, because I could have just looked it up with my phone, or the manual for the truck. And you only need to put out the triangles if you're going to be pulled over on the side of the road for a long period of time, like longer than 15 minutes or 30 minutes. Don't quote me on that, but usually if you think you're going to be stuck for an extended period of time, like if you're broken down, that's when you put the triangles out, or if like you're in an accident or whatever. But if you're just pulling over to the side of the road because, I don't know, you're going to pee your pants and you need to pee real badly, you don't need to put out your triangles for that. So yeah, my equipment passed, but I didn't. Thank you, Mr. DOT officer. And this next story is the last time I've ever been pulled over and had any kind of encounter with some kind of authority figure on the side of the road. If I recall correctly, we were leaving an area out of like a 45 mile per hour zone, going up to 65. There was a semi-truck beside me who is heavier than me and so much slower. My trailer was empty, so I floored it until I hit 65 to get around them, which is what my company truck is limited to, 65 miles an hour. I ended up passing, I think it was 2 trucks. One going uphill, and then I was going around another one as we were going downhill. And as we were going downhill, we passed a trooper. I don't think he was actually a DOT officer, but don't quote me on that. It doesn't matter at this point. He was parked in the median, watching people speed. When we pass him, he pulls out, catches up to me, lights me up, so I pull over. On the right side this time, I learned my lesson. And this guy tells me, you were going like 76 or 78 miles an hour, man. I can't remember what he told me. I just know it was in the high 70s. That's way too fast for a 65 mile an hour zone, especially in a truck. That's just bad behavior. So I told him 78, there's no way that's possible. Because the truck's governed and it has a lytics camera, a security camera in the windshield that would have taken a very nice video of me speeding if I had done that. My safety department never sent me any footage of me basically violating our speed policy, so obviously it didn't happen. He said he got me with a radar gun, but I still told him there must be some mistake because my truck is governed to 65 and the engine brake turns on if I hit 70 automatically. If I go past 70 somehow, the onboard camera would have snitched on me to my company's safety department that I was violating our speed policy, so I probably wouldn't have a job right now if any of this was true. But either way, I double checked. I asked my safety manager if I did go past 70 and get a picture taken of me, all the way up to like 76, 78 miles an hour. My safety manager told me there was nothing there, which basically means whatever the officer was claiming was not real. Even without all of that proof, I still knew the guy was wrong or that he was lying. So he goes back to his squad car and he's in there for, felt like forever, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. It wasn't half an hour, but it felt like a long time. Then he gets out, walks around my truck and trailer, and then gives me 2 equipment violations, which cannot be contested, by the way. One was for abrasions on my air lines, which control the brakes on the trailer, which I had a shop verify was nonsense and that the lines were fine. There were no abrasions, and they said that replacing them was a waste of money. And the other was for the clamp on my fire extinguisher. He didn't specify what the issue was with the clamp, only that he just didn't like, and I quote, the look of it. Which is silly, because I could have kicked that fire extinguisher and it wouldn't have moved. I actually probably would have broken a toe or two. This puts me in a bit of a bind, because then I had to find a way to explain to my safety department why I was getting all of these DOT violations in such quick succession, in such a short time span, even though I hadn't done anything illegal. I hadn't sped, my equipment was fine in both situations. How do you find a way to politely and cordially tell your safety manager, these DOT officers were just jerks? You can't. It doesn't matter, because once it's in the system, you just look like a flight risk. I guess it could have been worse, though. I mean, I suppose it's better than being pulled over by that cop that got freaked out by an acorn hitting the top of his squad car and doing a whole bunch of combat rolls and emptying his magazine into an unarmed suspect, who I think was handcuffed, by the way.
Just fired!
And then lose the ability to enunciate words properly. Now that is a guy who has no business being a cop or being allowed to handle firearms. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom on this channel. If you want to watch me drive possibly the best sounding E46 M3 on the planet and having just a great time, check out this video.